Hi, I'm Linda Moulton Howe. Since graduating from Stanford University, where I produce documentaries about medicine and science, I have investigated the world with the pressure of fact. I am a truth hunter on this planet, this solar system, and the universe beyond. Truth Hunter includes investigations of symbols discovered on the surfaces of UFO debris in the Roswell crashes of the 1940s and beyond, to many other locations that lead up to U.S. Army Sergeant CJ, I call him, and his wife on June 29, 2015. They were faced with an 820-foot diameter disc above their truck in Wadley, Georgia. Across the middle of the huge disc were symbols that I recognized, a couple of them as nearly the same as symbols drawn by Staff Sergeant James Penniston after midnight on December 26, 1980 in Rendlesham Forest near RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge. So let's start now with a comparison of the Wadley craft symbols with those in the Rendlesham Forest incident. The far left symbol on the Wadley, Georgia disc seems to match the far left bottom symbol that Staff Sergeant James Penniston sketched after he touched raised symbols on a 9-foot-long black glassy triangular craft in Rendlesham Forest. That was in England, and it was about 3 a.m. on December 26, 1980. Also, Sergeant Penniston's ring around that triangle with the two black circles resembles the second symbol from the right on the Wadley disc that has a ring around a triangle with 3 circles. Sergeant CJ and his wife were very confused about what had happened. CJ recalculated his GPS and continued driving northwest to Atlanta, Georgia, again on a different road. They finally checked into the Magnuson Hotel in Kennesaw, north of Atlanta, at 7:36 a.m. on June 29, 2015. They slept in the day and then got back on the road headed for Kentucky. The credit card sales receipt for the Motel 6 in Paducah, Kentucky, shows CJ and his family checked in at 5:13 a.m. on June 30th, 2015. Exhausted, everyone fell asleep. But Sergeant CJ found himself waking up in their Motel 6 bathroom, holding a ballpoint pen in one hand and the letter-size motel receipt in the other. CJ was staring at the back of the receipt covered with squares and lines that trailed off to the angry, perplexed letters, "What the WTF?" For our first recorded interview about this high strangeness, he asked that his voice be electronically altered because he is active Army and he wants to remain anonymous. So what you are about to hear is a distorted male voice. Sergeant CJ talks about a vivid dream that he had before becoming conscious in that bathroom. In the dream, light gray-colored alien beings wearing dark lenses over eyes similar to, but larger than human eyes, are warning about a threat to Earth. Have you seen the symbols in sleep or in your mind's eye?
Usually in my sleep, and that first time that it happened was in that hotel. I do not remember getting out of bed and walking into the bathroom with a pen in my hotel sheet and doing that. I literally woke up standing there after I had finished.
Have the symbols been repeated in addition to the squares and the vertical lines?
Yeah, I've seen them again in dreams.
Can you describe that dream?
Yeah, it's dark all the way around, and they're being scrolled past from right to left. They're slightly illuminated, like a light blue color.
Are you getting any impression of what they are saying in your dream?
Something Council of 5, I believe.
Council of 5, and what are they saying?
It's more of a warning and preparation for something. an alert of what may come, or what could come, or what is soon to come, or something to that effect. And they're doing what they can to try to help us. They're almost to the point where they're outnumbered, and we're going to need to assist and get to where we need to be sooner in order to be able to stand a chance.
Did you see any humanoids of any shape or size or type in any of your dreams?
Yes, ma'am.
Which type?
Skin similar to ours, however, grayish in color, elongated heads, larger sockets for eyes, larger eyes. In the dream that I was seeing, there was one about where my feet would be, and I could see expressions on its face as a little bit of worry, but was trying to keep me calm.
Did you get the telepathic impressions of warning there aren't enough of us, there's more of them, something is going to happen that's going to be a big problem, and that these beings have been trying to help and now they can't because they don't have enough numbers versus what is there?
Similar, perhaps, but I think it's more along the lines of what we're doing that's going to harm us, such as sending signals out into space is not a safe thing to do, that we have technology that we need to expand on, but it's being kept from everyone behind locked doors or closed doors, and only to certain individuals or something to that effect, and allow all minds to come together to get things done a little bit quicker.
Or what is going to happen?
Whatever's going to happen might negatively affect us. I don't know what that might be, though.
And if there is a warning or an alert, that would imply that something is coming that may be harmful.
I don't know. I know it's something that will affect us here on Earth. I know that at our current advancement in technology and how we're progressing is happening too slow. And the way to fix that is opening up and allowing everyone here who is kept in the dark or not being told the information. We need to allow outside minds in order to solve the issues that we're having, to increase our advancement in technology and speed up our process for advancement.
If that doesn't happen, what bad could happen?
I really don't have an answer for that.
About the Council of Five, Sergeant CJ told me he had never heard about it outside of the dream. When you Google ET or Alien Council of Five, this is one of the websites that comes up that lists 5 alleged alien races that include, all caps, EMERTHER, Emerther. The website Alien Axioms describes the Emerther as, quote, one of the founder races of the Council of Five, ancient and more advanced on many levels than most cosmic intelligences. Allegedly, it was the Emerther that wanted to meet with, or did meet with, American President Dwight Eisenhower to perhaps discuss atomic bomb tests. The Emerther warned humans that atomic bombs must be stopped because the nuclear blasts were tearing into other dimensions. The website states, without giving sources, quote, very little is known about the 5 alien races that make up the Council of Five. These 5 races have been protecting Earth and humans for a long time, and they last met together on this planet in 1944, close quote. I asked Sergeant CJ why he thought advanced intelligences would be communicating with Earth humans in binary code. And he replied, quote, well, maybe it's like the yin and yang symbol of black and white. So zeros and ones can be used all over the universe to communicate, close quote. On Earth, this is what standard ASCII 8-bit binary code looks like. It starts with the number 0, which is equivalent to the 8 characters 0011 space 0000. Capital letters are different from lowercase letters. Punctuation, such as periods and commas, each have their own 8-bit code designators. I had Sergeant CJ's squares and ones translated. Here is the first page showing how letters and words emerge in ASCII binary code. Continuous protection of humanity, 49 degrees, 27 minutes north, 11 degrees, 5 minutes east, expose hidden knowledge to all caps. Citizens, advancement imperative for planetary survival. Beware of Orion 1350.3 and Z Reticuli 39.1 question mark. The question mark is from the translator. Then the number 70, avoid, and the bracket signal was an interpretation by the translator. It said, avoid messages sent. Now here is the whole translation for all of the squares and lines. Sergeant CJ wrote on the back of that Motel 6 letter-size receipt in Paducah, Kentucky. Continuous protection of humanity, 49 degrees, 27 minutes north, 11 degrees, 5 minutes east. Expose hidden knowledge to all citizens. Advancement imperative for planetary survival. Beware of Orion 1350.3 and Z Reticuli 39.1, question mark 70. Avoid messages sent. And now we know the numbers 1350.3 and 39.1 question mark 70 do have a match in the distance from the Earth to the Orion Nebula, which is 1,350 light years from Earth, and to the binary star system of Zeta Reticuli, that is 39.17 light years from Earth. Earlier references to Zeta Reticuli 1 first turned up in the 1961 Betty and Barney Hill abduction in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. That was the first worldwide reported human abduction by gray alien beings. Betty Hill said one of the gray entities showed her a three-dimensional hologram of stars that had connecting lines that the gray telepathically downloaded into Betty's mind were trade routes connecting some star systems in our arm of the Milky Way galaxy. Instead of solid lines, some stars were connected by dash lines. The gray being telepathed to Betty that those were exploration routes and that our sun and solar system were being explored. The last line, avoid messages sent, seems to relate to Sergeant CJ's dream information about the danger of Earth sending out SETI signals without knowing who is on the other end. That same warning came in 2015 from Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and physicist Stephen Hawking about both SETI and relying too much on artificial intelligence. Let's go back to the first line that says, continuous protection of humanity, 49 degrees, 27 minutes north, and 11 degrees, 5 minutes east. If that latitude and longitude are supposed to be a location on Earth where ETs from the Council of Five are supposed to be protecting humans, how odd that it turns out to be town center of Nuremberg, Germany. Nuremberg was a significant city for the Nazis in World War II, and the location of the international war crime trials after the war ended. But Nuremberg was also famous more than 400 years ago in 1561, when immense black cylinders appeared in an early dawn sky and released many strange, smaller blue, black, red, and orange spheres, rods, and crosses. Many people watched the aerial machines clash in battle above a great black spear that remained stationary for the entire hour-long conflict. Some UFOs crashed and burned. You can see it in the lower right of this famous woodcut by German artist Hans Glaser. So who in that aerial UFO battle might have been protecting humanity? as stated in the Sergeant CJ binary code, quote, continuous protection of humanity, close quote. What could the battle be about? Now let's go deeper into binary code messages by comparing Sergeant CJ's string of zeros and ones to Sergeant Jim Peniston's back on December 26, 1980. That was the night that Sergeant Peniston, with Airman First Class John Burroughs and Airman Ed Kavansak, were ordered into Rendlesham Forest, England, to investigate strange colored lights moving around in the tall forest on civilian land that ran along RAF Bentwater's Woodbridge. That was then NATO's largest airbase. This is a page 1 of the binary code written down by Sergeant Peniston after he touched the raised symbols on the surface of a mysterious black, glassy triangular craft on the forest ground. The red vertical lines mark off the groups of 8 zeros and ones to match against the ASCII code translation for letters and numbers. At the right is the summary translation, and this is now Sergeant Peniston in 1980. Exploration of humanity, unclear. Then numbers, and then the number 8100. This is page 2 of Peniston's binary code that translates to a latitude and longitude, and in all caps the word continuous. Page 3 translates in all caps for planetary advance. Fourth coordinate continuous, CEPR question mark, we don't know what that is. The word before. And then page 5, Peniston binary code, after the word before, Peniston's writing stops. End of transmission. After those first 5 pages of code were translated, Peniston then released one more batch of zeros and ones. This is Peniston's personally approved and official release of his binary code translation that adds 6 latitude and longitude coordinates for Caracol, Belize, Sedona, Arizona, the Great Pyramid of Giza, Egypt, the Nazca Lines of Peru, Taishan Q, China, where the green symbols were on that UFO, the Temple of Apollo in Naxos, Greece. And then came these words, eyes of your eyes, in all caps, and then a repeat of the controversial latitude-longitude that some interpret as being High Brazil, mythical off the western coast of Ireland, or Woodbridge, England. And in the last line, the number 8100 is repeated as, all caps, origin year 8100. If you subtract Earth year 1980 from 8100, you get 6,120 years, perhaps in the future, for the time travelers. But Peniston, in hypnosis, said that he was telepath, that they were from 40,000 years in our future. But it can also be argued that the time travelers from a distant future were not referring to Earth-based 365-day-year cycles of time. It is also important to understand that Sergeant Peniston did not have any decimal placements in his string of zeros and ones in his notebook. So each latitude and longitude could be any one of 24 possibilities, according to an astronomer, Mike Reed, who did the original binary translations. For example, in the second line, latitude and longitude, when a decimal was tried in a different position than the High Brazil option, it precisely matched the town center of Woodbridge, not far from the air base and Rendlesham Forest. The scientists felt strongly the Woodbridge option made more sense because the black triangle craft, if it's a time travel device, it would likely be emitting a continuous stream of location information to whoever sent the black triangle to Rendlesham Forest. Astronomer Reed thought that land options were more logical than oceans. But the Ancient Aliens producers preferred the mythical ocean idea of High Brazil, since it fit with their Ancient Aliens theme. High Brazil was supposed to be an ancient island west of Ireland that only appeared once every 7 years. Adding to its mystery were the tales of people in boats who tried to reach the island, but they never could. However, astronomer Mike Reed argued that the Woodbridge Town Center was so close to where the black glassy triangular craft and its symbols were telepathically sending the binary code into Sergeant Peniston's mind that Town Center Woodbridge made sense to him. Let's now compare Sergeant CJ's first June 30th, 2016 binary translation on the top with Sergeant Peniston's first binary release from his December 26, 1980 encounter. The words that stand out as similar are continuous, humanity, advanced planetary survival. Another warning about planetary survival came in this binary code discovered in a wheat field next to Crabwood Copse in the village of Pitt near Winchester, Hampshire, England on August 15, 2002. The gray alien head and binary code disc is in front of BBC Winchester's tall broadcast antenna, and those 60 thin horizontal lines are thought to simulate an early 20th century TV broadcast. The implication seemed to be that the crop formation was a reply to Earth TV signals. The start of the Crabwood August 15, 2002 binary spiral of code begins 0100 space 0010, which equals the capital letter B. The entire ASCII 8-bit translation of the Crabwood spiral binary code is: beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe misspelled. There is good out there. We oppose deception, all caps. Conduit closing, close quote. But was the warning from the alien depicted in the wheat holding the binary disc? Or was the warning about the alien in the wheat pattern? The 3 star-like objects on the alien's shoulder resemble the famous Orion belt stars, so many people think there is a threat from something associated with the Orion constellation. Then in early 2016 came a retired Navy whistleblower, William Mills Tompkins, who said that from World War II on for several years, he worked building scale models of UFOs and learned that the United States government had extraterrestrial allies that protected humanity and Earth from marauding, bullying, humanoid reptilians that originated in the constellations Orion and Draco. A similar message was repeated 13 years later on June 23, 2015, near the airport of Turin, Italy, also known as Torino. This city is where Jesus Christ's alleged burial shroud is kept. Geneticist Horace Drew, PhD, from Sydney, Australia, tackled these very difficult rings of binary code that included 128 small circles in straight lines between 16 triangular rays of the outermost ring. His binary translation of that outer ring is, beware ET bearing gifts. Dr. Drew said the Torino, Italy, June 23, 2015 summer solstice wheat pattern, quote, "It looks like a clock, where we have to rotate the inner wheel to match the outer wheel," close quote. Even though the inner ring binary code is not clear, Dr. Drew thinks some of it warns about a Trojan horse event coming to Earth. He wonders if the Trojan horse is an invasion attack by non-humans from Orion and Zeta Reticuli, warned about also in Sergeant CJ's binary code of June 30th, 2015. And that was only 7 days after the Torino, Italy warning. Sergeant CJ did receive more telepathic downloads coming into his head at night. He said the squares and lines came faster than before, so it was hard for him to write it all down. He also could see that some of the squares were darkened, and he managed to get some of the new communication written down, along with his comments about what was happening. From October 27th to the first week of January 2016, Sergeant CJ was waking up a lot, yelling. I talked with his wife, and she said he would wake her up talking loudly and was often saying a string of numbers. She told me near tears how much it scared her, and she wanted it to stop. Sergeant CJ said he was trying to concentrate on the dark shadings in the squares that he hadn't been able to copy before because the images moved too fast in his mind's eye, moving right to left. But finally, he thought that he was getting some of it in these new pages. Dr. Drew researched binary codes, and he found this one at thinkersmith.org that uses squares that are either clear or blackened to represent ones and zeros. Horace Drew applied it to Sergeant CJ's new pages. On the far left of this graphic, Dr. Drew's binary translations are in red letters going vertically down the page, next to matching binary code, spelling the first word, imminent. Imminent threat soon upon Earth's leaders and civilizations. Expose and disband hidden knowledge to all citizens. Employ safe and controlled joint study to all minds. Progression imperative for combined survival. Embrace this, and there was a space, vessel threat, and then the number 000, and then the word journey, followed by brackets around a 12, followed by LY, which on Earth, LY is used by astronomers to mean light year, 12 light years. And then Ike's, is that President Eisenhower? Ike's embedded citizens are ready, AISCLOSE, the word evolve, followed by 6 ones. We don't understand it, but that's the literal ASCII code. Then, Royal Emerther all caps. Warning, expose foreign technology to all evolutionary advancement needed to prevent takeover, bracket the number 3 and a single quote mark. In the last paragraph is that all caps word, Emerther, that on the web is associated with an alien council of 5. Then, on February 18, 2016, Sergeant CJ found that he had added 5 new lines of squares and lines without darkening any of them. Sergeant CJ emailed me, quote, "It was fast, and I was unsure if I drew them down correctly. It felt like it was not meant for me to write them, and I felt weird about it, like it was not clear enough for me. I just did the best I could, and I figured it was probably all messed up or wrong. They are the only ones I have had since I sent you photos of my notebook. I could not darken the boxes and lines because they were moving too fast, and I was having a hard time concentrating. There was much more to it, but I could not keep up concentrating," close quote. I sent them to Dr. Drew, and what he sent back was a surprise. There were 5 clumps of letters in 5 unknown words. Dr. Drew did know that the last 2 letters, KI, originally meant Earth in ancient Sumerian. And the letters and the words are Nabu Rakbu, capital H, Larak, Sanu, Ki. I sent the 5 words to Professor Joshua Jeffers, PhD, research specialist, Royal Inscriptions of the Neo-Assyrian Period Project at the University of Pennsylvania in the Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology, Babylonian Section, Philadelphia. Here is his March 24, 2016 reply. The first 2 words and the 4th word look to be Akkadian and not Sumerian. The first could be the god Nabu, but without the cuneiform, it is difficult to say, since there is no divine classifier, as it's known, before the word Nabu. Well, what is Nabu? Nabu was one of the three most important gods in Sumeria. Nabu was the keeper of the tablets of destiny that recorded humanity's fate. He was son of Marduk and grandson of Enki Ea of the Anunnaki. Nabu's grandfather, Ea, is the creator and protector of humanity because Ea created humans out of clay to be worker slaves for the Mesopotamian gods. But the supreme god Enlil was irritated by the noise that humans made, apparently because we aren't telepathic and we have to talk out loud. So Enlil wanted to destroy Ea's human slave creation with a devastating flood. But Ea realized what Enlil was up to and got a friend to build an ark so that humanity could escape God Enlil's act of annihilation. Professor Jeffers continues, quote, "The second word, rakbu, would be the noun rider from the verb rakabu, to ride, frequently meant upon a horse or chariot. The middle third word could possibly be the word for the city of Larsa in southern Mesopotamia, today modern Iraq, written out phonetically. It should be Larag K without a doubled A, but the H is nonsensical for Sumerian and Akkadian and is puzzling. The fourth word, sanu, could be an infinitive of the verb to do again, or a second time, or even to be different and strange. And the fifth word, ki, by itself can be Sumerian and would mean earth or land," close quote from the professor at the University of Pennsylvania. The precise meaning of the 5 Mesopotamian words remain unclear. Sergeant CJ is waiting to see if he has any more telepathic downloads that might explain more about these Sumerian and Akkadian words. But here is one more look at everything translated from binary transmissions to Sergeant CJ so far. Some whistleblowers say that advanced ET technology includes control and manipulation of gravity, camouflaging matter with invisibility, 3D holograms, and the ability to fold space and time in point-to-point transportation around the cosmos. What happened in Rendlesham Forest on December 26, 1980, was apparently of great interest to America's Defense Intelligence Agency. The DIA had remote viewers working at Fort Meade, Maryland, next door to the National Security Agency in 1986. Their remote viewer, Lynn Buchanan, worked in a DIA unit called DTS. Their goal was to research how accurately psychic abilities could be used in their spy program called Stargate. On July 14, 1986, one of Lynn's assigned practice targets was the Rendlesham Forest incident, but only his monitor knew the target that was on a 3x5 card in a file drawer in another room. Further, Lynn knew nothing about the military mystery that had occurred 6 years before on December 26 to 28, 1980. But what Lynn did see in remote viewing seems to link to the repeating theme in the binary code messages about planetary survival. But is the threat only to humans? Or could it be there is an existential threat to both humans and ET allies that inhabit Earth? What government insiders have long called the alien presence. I interviewed Lynn Buchanan recently about this 2008 CIA released document. It is Lynn's original 1986 Rendlesham Forest controlled remote viewing session. None of us, including Lynn, knew that it had been unclassified and posted on the CIA website in 2015 until John Burroughs, who had been affected by lights at RAF Bentwaters, was told to go to a specific URL on the web. It was the CIA website, and there was the 1986 transcript of Lynn Buchanan's remote viewing session of Rendlesham Forest. Why was it put there, Lynn wondered, without anyone even telling him?
As always, I got encrypted coordinates, so I had no idea I was viewing it. And I was viewing one specific night of that, I found out later, and of the several nights. And so that's the only one I have viewed. But during that, they had me describe the craft, and then they had me go inside the craft and draw the floor plans, draw the internal plans and everything else. What I got in the beginning was just a control room, a control panel, just like, you know, you would expect for any flight deck. The entire thing was empty. I went ahead and went through the rest of the ship. But I went into the computer. I can read computers. And I went into the computer and found out that it was autonomous. It wasn't controlled by anybody. It was autonomous. And it was looking for something, and several things, in fact. And when it found one of those things it was looking for, programmed to look for, it would sort of radio back to somebody and say, I found it, and then later they would know exactly where to come. From the outside, it was shiny, of course. It seemed to me on the outside like it was maybe about 5 or 6 times the size of a car. Now, when I got on the inside, of course, if they were smaller, it would look, I would have shrunk to that, and it would have, you know. But on the inside, it looked pretty big. There were, compartments and things like that, and this control panel, which was totally unmanned. Now, one of the things about controlled remote viewing is that your conscious mind works best present time. Your subconscious mind can go anywhere in time and space. And so you give the command, move to that time and that place. Now, what am I seeing here? Present time. And your conscious mind says, oh, now I'm seeing, and so on. We were never officially tasked with ETs or UFOs. During the entire project, we were never officially tasked with those. And so, we had done a lot of ETs, and I never found one that had any indicator that it was a time machine. I think it was just a drone that was automated to go find things, and, hey, drone, phone home.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I don't know what it was looking for, but evidently it found it at Rendlesham Forest.
Since 1979, I have interviewed some 1,500 people in what is called the human abduction syndrome. And what has emerged over more than 30 years is the repeating theme that an alien presence is harvesting genetic material from Earth. Time machines, incubators of alien life, trying to survive in planet-seeding missions, ET hybrids and clones, eons beyond us, as the MJ-12 documents say. Whistleblowers have reported that alien technologies can make their various spacecraft, androids, and other ET technologies invisible to human eyes. This naval ship fading into invisibility is an October 2015 Northrop Grumman Facebook posting. In addition to invisibility, the extraterrestrial technology is described as functioning with self-activating software that can neutralize gravity and project three-dimensional holograms as camouflage that human eyes and minds cannot detect in the Earth environment. The alien goal, they say, is to harvest genetic material from this planet's animal and human life in order to create a large ongoing supply of rapid cycle cloned and hybridized body containers with very advanced technology that some people in the human abduction syndrome refer to as the resurrection tubes. I first learned about the cloning tube technology the first week of March of 1991. That's when I received in the mail a large envelope that contained an audio cassette, a letter, and several color drawings from a woman named Linda Porter. She was born in 1946 and began having memorable experiences with non-humans by age 12 in 1958. She had decided it was important to reach me after hearing a conference presentation that I had given in California concerning eyewitness testimony about non-human intelligences interacting with our planet. She was concerned about her vulnerability as a person caught up in the human abduction syndrome, and she was frightened about the United States government's policy of hiding the alien presence. Her letter to me began, quote, "We, meaning abductees, are caught in the middle of a series of ongoing events that will one day prove to be historically significant to the future of the Earth. Unfortunately, because of our continuing non-voluntary interactions with these beings, we have, in a sense, become victims of both sides of the phenomena. On the one hand, we are used by the aliens for their own purposes, whatever those purposes may be. On the other, if we speak out, we risk ridicule from the public and, in some cases, possible harassment and/or intimidation by government and military personnel. If you could look directly into these creatures' eyes, you'd realize that every detail of your life, no matter how personal, no matter how mundane, how minute, is known to them. It makes me wonder, are we some kind of Ken and Barbie dolls being played with by an emotionally immature race of beings with no sense of morality? Or are we pawns held in the grasp, maybe of a dying race, that will do anything for their own survival, including the cold-blooded manipulation of another species, which is us, we humans, and the brutal mutilation of helpless animals? Unless a person has been through the trauma of an abduction, they cannot comprehend how these entities can strip the mind and soul as easily as they can strip the clothes off of a body. They can scan details of a person's life with such facility that they make you feel as if you are an interesting piece of lint caught between their toes. In the blink of an eye, these beings devastate all personal freedom, all sense of privacy, and all prospects for living a normal existence. A person's life is never the same again. He or she is changed forever, close quote. Linda Porter's words speak for a lot of abductees who have interacted with gray, blonde, reptilian, or insect humanoids. But some abductees think that there are friendly non-humans which are actually trying to help people advance to more stability that could help the non-humans to survive as well. In this 1995 Thanksgiving letter to me, Linda Porter wrote, quote, "The people who live on the earth, those who will survive the destructive changes to come, will be evolving into a new species of being. I'm not referring right now to the time travelers from Earth's future that are here also. That was something that was necessary because Earth governments got hold of a dangerous technology that greatly altered Earth's future for the worse. Remember the mistake that was made that I told you about a while back? Some type of technology fell into the wrong hands, and the future travelers were sent back in time to change that. I don't know if it has been changed, at least not yet. But that was an entire sidebar to evolution that was never meant to happen, close quote. Linda Porter was the first of half a dozen people in the human abduction syndrome that I've interviewed who experienced being raised and lowered in a tube of light and passed through walls that felt like thousands of little feathers all over their bodies. Linda said the light tube is different from the tunnels that opened up inside of her bedroom, quote. The beam is used only to transfer people from Earth to a craft and back. The tunnel is a physical created hole from one dimension to another. Traveling through the tunnel was what made me ill, had something to do with change in physical density of two differing dimensions, close quote. Linda told me that in 1963, when she was 17 years old, she was abducted from her Covina, California home by gray-colored beings with large eyes. These gray beings seemed to be the extraterrestrial biological entities, or EBINs, that are described in leaked government documents as friendly and concerned about Earth and human evolution. Or perhaps they are the emerthers referenced in Sergeant CJ's binary downloads. Linda Porter was shown a procedure to transfer the soul, or life force, from a dying man into a healthy, younger clone of a man. Linda could see in one of the cloning resurrection tubes. The gray being told Linda telepathically that the same soul transfer would be done with her. That gray being explained telepathically to Linda that she had rheumatic fever as a teenager that damaged her heart. The gray non-human said it was vital that Linda Porter's soul entity continue in the same genetic body container that she had been born with in order to accomplish an unknown alien agenda. Linda watched a golden yellow-orange light rise out of the top of the dead man's spine and elongate in the air as it moved across the room to a row of body-sized tubes, lighted from the top and from the bottom and filled with a strange purple-looking gas. Inside the tubes, on the far right, was a clone body of the same man, but about 10 years younger. Linda Porter said there was a problem about Earth body containers, souls, other dimensions, and altered timelines. Linda said, quote, I was told that the resurrected cloned man would be relocated elsewhere, maybe Australia, and would continue on with his life, close quote. Linda thought that it was vital to the non-human entities that the man's soul continue functioning longer inside the same kind of container that his older, sick body had been. Linda thought that one of the reasons that the non-humans take tissue samples from abductees when they are as young as 4 years old is to have this tissue in reserve in case a new body for the abductee to keep going in human life becomes necessary later on. Linda explained, quote, new bodies can be stored indefinitely. The containers in the sketch with the 3 people in the tubes are storage containers. The containers in both new sketches I sent you are activation containers. They have a light in the top that must be on the person for unknown amount of hours before a body can be activated, if a body has been in storage. If the body is newly made, it does not need light. In the sketch with the 3 people in the tubes, the body on the far right was the younger one given to the dying man. I got the impression, she said, the aliens do not like to do this soul transfer very often. Actually, I got the feeling the aliens are not supposed to be doing this at all. But they seem to be backed into a corner and have no other recourse. They also seem to be trying to hide all of this from some higher form of life, whatever the authority is that prohibits this soul transfer, also prohibits the ETs from interfering on this planet Earth. But the Greys are interfering. Whoever the authority is much higher evolved than they are and wields a great deal of power over many, many other realms of existence. Linda Porter said there is much, much more to existence than we could ever begin to understand. Much of what we have been taught regarding the physical universe and the laws that govern it is wrong. The Eben doing the soul transfer from her diseased body to her new clone body in one of the lighted tubes gave Linda Porter an overview of how the cosmos is constructed from the Eben's point of view. The universe, she said, is built on sound patterns, which is why so many different world dimensions can exist in the same space. Each is on a different frequency. Disrupt a world dimension to the point that you destroy the carrier wave that it exists on, and you have created a hole in existence that cannot support the dimension above or below it. Each frequency, besides maintaining its own world dimension, also supports or holds in place the one above it and below it. Everything is interdependent. There are countless worlds' dimensions occupying the same space without being aware of one another because of having their own individual octaves. The octave frequency holds the world dimension in place and causes it to exist safely without interfering with or even being aware of other worlds around it. This frequency acts as a buffer zone to keep everything in its place. You do anything to disrupt it, and you begin a collapse that starts a deadly chain reaction. If the density of this collapse reaches a certain weight, space-time itself begins to collapse. Atomic and hydrogen bombs physically tear into other dimensions. And whatever the experiment is that our government in the United States is involved with in outer space, if successful, it will change the density of matter to such an extent that the chain reaction started will not be able to be stopped by anybody in any world or dimension. Linda Porter said there are literally hundreds of different alien life forms here trying to stop what is happening, as it is putting their own worlds at risk. Some, as I had mentioned in earlier letters, are not supposed to be interfering, but are doing so anyway. What they are all trying to do is stop a ripple effect that will emanate outward from Earth should this government experiment succeed. With all their technology, why don't the aliens or their superiors just walk in and stop the whole thing themselves? Why do they need us abductees to speak for them? Something just doesn't make any sense. I wonder if we are being lied to, used for some purpose to put over ideas that they want us to believe. If there is an experiment, maybe if it succeeds, it will put us in competition with the aliens for something they don't want to share. Maybe they're trying to scare us out of their neighborhood. A similar warning about a government experiment in space was described by another woman in the abduction syndrome named Judy Doherty. I met Judy in spring 1980 when I was producing the TV documentary A Strange Harvest about the worldwide animal mutilation phenomenon. Law enforcement told me as far back as September 1979 that they knew the perpetrators of animal mutilations are creatures from outer space. because of the bloodless surgical excisions on both the surface of animals and the removal of internal organs, such as hearts and trachea, without any surgical excisions on the surface of the animal's body. Some whistleblowers say that advanced ET technology includes control and manipulation of gravity, camouflaging matter with invisibility, 3D holograms, and the ability to fold space and time in point-to-point transportation around the cosmos. We'll hear from some government whistleblowers on the next Truth Hunter. This is Linda Moulton Howe. Please stay tuned to my Gaia series for more revelations about our universe, this solar system, and the planet we live on.